Greg Jefferson from the San Antonio Current, Josh Baugh from the San Antonio Express News. We were just talking about the scooters downtown. And Greg, just how stupid does a person look when they're riding these scooters?
You have no idea.
Real stupid?
I think it's a proportionate thing. Like the older you are,
the stupider you look.
The dumber you look. Trust me on this. Trust me. Yeah, you can look pretty silly. And it's funny. I work in so the Current office is on North St. Mary's in Midtown. So we're just a little bit north of downtown. We don't see a lot of street life along that part of the street. And actually, this is part of my column this week. But lately, over the last 2 weeks, I've looked up from my desk and I've seen people kind of whiz by on scooters. Like people, they're getting into parts of downtown. I don't think you'd see a lot of pedestrian traffic in. So that's encouraging. I mean, obviously they're getting into an area maybe they wouldn't have thought to go before because it is oppressively hot right now. And it's nice to go on a scooter, but they look silly. I mean, that's just a fact.
Josh, do you see tourists taking advantage of this as well to get around downtown?
Tourists will definitely do it, and they have for a long time used the segways for tours, and they've also done the ride share, the bike share. But that requires a day pass, and you have to find where those docks are. And these scooters, they open up a lot of possibilities because you can find them anywhere and you can take them anywhere. There's very, very few restrictions. They're going to do some geofencing that prevent scooters like Blue Duck, for example, the local company, is going to put a geofence around Alamo Plaza. And so if you ride a scooter into Alamo Plaza, it's going to kind of ding at you like an unbuckled seatbelt, and eventually it'll just stop functioning and it won't let you drive through there because they're trying to be kind of good partners with the city. And so we were talking a little bit about the lack of regulation. Right now there are no regulations on e-scooters in San Antonio. The Transportation Committee is going to take that up in August, and we'll probably see an ordinance come out in late August or September, sometime this fall for sure. But it's going to be a much lighter touch, and it's going to be kind of some basic stuff about maintenance, making sure that they're not littering the streets, that they're not left on ADA accessible sidewalks, things like that.
Would the company be responsible for that? I mean, where does the onus fall on that?
Right now, the downtown operations is currently picking up any scooter that is just kind of left in the middle of a sidewalk, which is interesting because they could just as easily put it up against a wall, which is what they ask you to do, is kind of park them parallel to walls or next to bike racks. But they're actually picking them up. They're not fining the company, but they're making the company come and retrieve anything that they pick up during the day. There's a massive problem in Dallas with dockless bicycles. Apparently a company dropped 20,000 bikes in downtown Dallas, and they're just literal piles of bikes along sidewalks. The e-scooters are a little bit different because they require a charge overnight. They're policed every single day. For Bird, you can actually sign up to be a charger, and at 8 o'clock you go out and you start to hunt for scooters using the app because they're all GPS enabled, and you get paid anywhere between $5 and $20 per scooter to take those home and charge them. But I understand that the requirement to get paid is that you actually have to put them out into predetermined locations the next day between 4 and 7 a.m. So it's probably a kind of fun thing for certain people to do, but probably not really a side gig, side hustle, so to speak. But I don't think that we're going to see that same kind of issue with just mounds of scooters, because in order for them to function, they've got to go home every night.
And as you mentioned, the city council is kind of late to the game when it comes to regulating some of this new technology. They had real problems with Uber and Lyft. Now they're struggling. As a matter of fact, the Planning Commission is just meeting this week to discuss where to go with Airbnb. They can't wrap their arms around that. Is this going to be another tech challenge for our technologically challenged city council?
Well, this is a very different city council than what we had in 2013 when Uber and Lyft came to town. My story that ran in the paper on Sunday about scooters quoted the mayor saying that this is a disruptive technology that helps bridge that last mile gap. In fact, I interviewed Ron and Nelson Wolf a few months ago about the transit plan that's going to come out that should be on the ballot sometime in 2019. And that's a grand plan that's going to have, massive mass transit stuff, big buses and trackless trains and stuff like that. But there's this gap that they call the last mile, which is when you ride that bus in, or you ride the train into downtown, how do you get around downtown? And Nelson Wolff had indicated several months ago that one option might be electric scooters. At that time, I had no idea that these things even existed, you know, and so I'm sitting there kind of scratching my head thinking, what is this guy talking about? Well, my guess is that he knew that companies like Bird and Lime and Blue Duck existed and were on their way to San Antonio. But there's a lot of support, you know. The chair of the Transportation Committee is Ray Saldana, and he seems to be enthused by the arrival. And what's interesting to me is that there's been some significant pushback in San Francisco. People there are just tired of the tech startups testing everything on their streets, and so there's been a significant rebellion there. I think you kind of start to see places like San Antonio that want to become a tech hub be much more accepting of these things than the tech areas.
What'll be interesting though, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like we don't have, you know, we're not a hub for driverless cars, you know, beta testing for that or anything of the sort. But I mean, as you have other companies coming in, like Blue Duck, in addition to Bird offering, you know, dockless scooters downtown, you'll simply have more scooters around. And, you know, whereas before, you know, the hotel industry favored rideshare, you know, when we had the debate several years ago, are they going to feel the same way about the sharing economy when it results in, you know, a lot of scooters in front of their hotels? I mean, if it becomes a burden, will they suddenly turn against the idea of apps and ordering, ordering the last mile transportation that way? I don't know. That remains to be seen. I mean, that's something that will play out at City Council.
Well, it's time for us to scoot back to work. Thank you very much, Greg Jefferson, Editor-in-Chief, San Antonio Current, Josh Baugh, City Hall reporter, San Antonio Express News. And thank you for joining us on The Conversation.